again. We are getting ready to make a merge pipe for the 90, I think, OBS TBI motor. So this is one of our 3-inch 180s that I bought that I showed my last video. And a couple things that I kind of missed in the last video is you can see like this turn is pretty good. It's got a little wrinkly. When you feel it, it's pretty smooth. This side, you got some wrinkles like they've shown in some of the reviews on Amazon. And you can feel it here. It's got kind of a rough spot. I'm not too worried about it because we're going from a 2 1/4. I'll show pictures. I'll put a picture up right now of the old merge. The old merge is 2 1/4 and then 2 1/2 coming out the top. We're going to go, so we're going 3. So we're going to go, the headers are 3. They step down to 2 1/2. And then I'm going to step them right back up to 3. So we're going to go 3, 3, 4 out the top, back to 3. So we're going to be way over. And with the TBI motor, we're not hitting 300 horsepower. So I'm not worried. I think a 3-inch exhaust is going to be plenty for this. So I was going through and trying to find center, and what I did was we lined up the square like that, and then I came in with another square like that, and then marked it on both sides. Here's the problem. When you go to the other side, you got the flare here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this off. So I'm going to lay, and you'll notice each side's a little off. I'm not sure this is exactly 180 either. It's pretty close. I'm not too worried about it. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the same off each side, hopefully. It doesn't really matter. What matters is my cuts up here and welding the two together. The plan is to take about 4 inches off because the gap in here between the two, so this ends at, I don't like this ruler that much. This one here ends at about 8 inches. So if we look at it, that's not a good side. Let's go here. We are at about 6 1/2. So we're going to pull out about 4, maybe a little bit more than 4. I'm going to put a 2-inch piece of tape on each side to set my cut. And that's what we're going to cut out of it. Once I double check this, first I'm going to cut up about here or so. I think we're going to end up here eventually, but I'm going to start out down here. And what I'm going to do is take a couple of boards like that, probably one more board, and then take a pen and then give it a little rotation, and that'll give us a nice line to cut on the bandsaw. And then I'll probably touch it up with the disc grinder to get it extra straight where I can't maybe rotate it through the bandsaw. Who knows? We'll see what happens. I might be able to get it all the way through the bandsaw pretty straight. But that's about where we're at. So like I said, I think we're around 6 1/2 inches right now ish. So we're going to be down to about 2 1/2, 2 inches apart, which I think will be plenty. I'm going to need enough room to be able to weld all the way around with the TIG welder and get the weld all the way through here. So I think 2 inches through there will be plenty for me to be able to finish welds because you'll see, again, I'll put up the picture right now of the merge pipe. And you'll be able to see what's going to end up happening is we're going to come off the passenger side header straight into this one. And I think actually right now you'll see in the picture the merge is like this. So I think we're going to end up probably like that. So we're going to be passenger side, driver side. So this is going to be probably a 90 right here coming into that. And then this, we're going to have to figure out. It's going to get tricky. Murphy's Diesel would say it's going to get Western. So that's where that's what we're starting with. I'm going to try and put the merge pipe into one big video so people can kind of see what we do. At some point, I'll try and post a picture of the one I did for my son's Ford. It's going to be very similar, but we're going to end up, like I said, we're 3, 3. We're going to go 4 with one of those cones, back down to 3, and then out. And I think it'll flow great for this motor. The big worries on these motors is the TBI because they only flow so much, and I think we've maxed that with our porting it and everything. So, yep. So that's the TBI. This is what we're doing. I'll link in the next video. All right. So I marked this unflared side first. Like I said, I did the 3 2x4, put the thing on there. I had my son hold the pen, and I did the old rotation. You can see each one of these is a little different. This one's flat. See how the other one's off the ground? So what I decided to do is I'm going to cut a section out of this side first. Then I'm going to come back and cut it, and then I'll do another line and then cut this section out. So that's where we're at on that. You'll see it after I cut it. Then we're going to lay it back on the table. I'll video how I get the center on it, try and get as much center as I can so I've got a good line that I can try and tape. We'll see how the tape comes out. If it gives us a good cut line, I think it probably should work fine, but that's the plan. All right, am I happy with my first cut? No, I'm not. I fixed it up a little with the flap wheel, but the bandsaw cut fought me a little bit, and this stuff's a little tricky because it's mandrel bent. It's not exactly totally round, and if you put the square on it on one side, it shows one thing, and when you put the square on it on another side, it shows something else. So it's a little bit of art here, but we got to cut. We're going to cut the other side, and then we're going to work on doing the middle and getting our merge going here. So stay tuned. That's where we're at right now. All right, let me show you what I figured out that I should have done. It looked like it was straight from the factory. It wasn't. Let me show you. Before I cut this one, what I decided to do was get the old square out. Let's see. That's not terrible, but then let's look at this side. I don't know if you can see that. Let me see. See the gap there? Got the big old gap, and then let's get the angle. Nice little gap there. So this thing didn't come kind of straight there. Actually, it's kind of high on one side, I think. But I don't know if you can. It's tricky with the camera. See the gap there. So this isn't straight. So doing the line like I was going to do like that isn't going to work. I'm just going to put a hose clamp on it and hope that gets straight enough. Again, this thing's got a nice little curve to it and stuff. You can kind of see how it bows in right there. Again, it's a little bit of art what we're dealing with here, so we'll just do the best we can. like we always do, it'll come out fine. That's with metal and welding. We'll work it out. So that's the update. I'm going to do the hose clamp. I'll do a quick video showing the hose clamp and the line we come up with there. Hopefully it's straighter than their line. All right, we got the Harbor Freight hose clamp. It's a 4-inch, which will work perfect. And we got the old 5/16 nut driver to work it, so we don't have to wrestle with the screwdriver. So I'll show you what it looks like when we get it on. All right, we went for the hose clamp. You can see I put a line on it. I think I'm going with the disc grinder, the wheel of death on this one. I didn't like, because this thing isn't perfectly round and it's kind of big. And with this thing, I think the bandsaw is going to fight me. So I think I'm going wheel of death on this one. So we'll see how it comes out, if it comes out better. May have to bust out the belt sander with the big disc on it and fix these, or not worry about it when we go to weld it and just fill in the gaps. You can see what I did with the grinder. I kind of went around, followed the line all the way around. Now I'm going to slowly work it with the grinder down, and then we'll clean it up with the flap disc. All right, so we did the old disc grinder trick, that one right there. What I did afterwards was took it, gave it a little run like that. One thing I want to mention too with disc grinders is I see a lot of people on TV and YouTube that take these things off. What I do is I cut them back. So I cut them smaller, but I like having something right there. So if you get tricky with your hand, all of a sudden your finger doesn't go into the thing there. And you can always move it around. You can see I've got most of the disc here this way, and I still have it to shield my hand a little bit and stuff, so I don't have grinder stuff going into my hand. And then the other thing is, we're a respirator when you use one of these. These things come from China, and we don't know exactly what's in them with the glue and stuff like that. So my little tips, that's what I do. All right, so what we did was square it up here with the square like that. And then while I had it up square, I took the magic square there and I figured out about 1 mark over 3.5. So I guess that's a 16th or under 3.5. So I flipped it and did it the other way and just kept going until the line lined up. Then I put a tie wrap around it and gave myself a line all the way around. So that's going to be our line that we're going to use for the tape to cut off of. And hopefully that's right. I think it's pretty close. I'm sure I'll be griping it, but that's why it's metal and we got a welder. So I think we're fairly close. I think these aren't perfect side to side. So I think if we use this line right here, we tape, tape, cut, cut, and then we're just going to put it all back together. So I tried doing the whole piece of tape and it started bunching up on that side. So what I think I'm going to try is little sections of tape and see if I can link it all together. Never seen anybody do it that way. There might be a reason why. See how it works out. All right, I tried the tape trick. Didn't work good. So what we're going to do instead is I got a piece of 2-inch angle iron and I'm going to run that around and line it off of this line right there and see if we get a good line off that. So we'll see how it turns out. I'm just going to take it around like that and line it with the pen all the way around. So we'll give that a try, see how that turns out. All right, so we ballparked it with the angle iron, kind of connected the lines. I think what we're going to do is cut inside the lines and then we'll trim it back to fit. Wish I could remember how I did my last one, honestly, because this is not even with this, so I'm going to have to come back and figure some stuff out. But we'll get it. So stand by. All right, so as I suspected, my lines were probably a little bit off. I really like how that one turned out. So what I'm going to do is give this guy a little trim job and get him to try and mirror that as much as possible. You can see I just got to cut him back a little bit, and then we'll be in the ballpark. You just got to get that thing a little bit bigger, and we'll be merging here soon. And we'll give it the old weld job and cut a hole on the end. So stand by, we'll give this a trim down, we'll see how it turns out. All right, here's where we're going to see how we're getting a little bit more into art with our Chinese exhaust that we bought, and why I like those little pieces that I showed in my other video way better than these things, because they're not real consistent from side to side. I'm going to show you. So I did some strategic cuts here to try and get them to mirror each other, and went down and then went to the disc grinder. And lengthwise, I think they're pretty close. I think lengthwise we're at, what, if we set it up on the 8, we're halfway between 4 3/4 and 4.5. So let's see where we're at on this one. Set it up on the 8, we're right there, pretty even, not bad. But check this out. We go outside to outside, we're at 8 and 5, so we're at 3 inches there. Check this. This is where we get into the China stuff, as Trump would say. Well, I guess we're actually fairly close there. We're still smaller though. You can kind of see how it's a hair smaller. So the bends aren't the same side to side. So what we're going to do is end up cheating it a little bit, which won't matter because we're going to cut the end of it out anyway. So we're more worried about the bottom. So we're going to get the bottom set up and get it even. They're going to cheat it on each side because one of these is narrower than the other, and just start tacking through it. And then we're going to end up cutting the top off anyway. So we'll start welding it, and then you can kind of see how I'm going to cheat it and stuff. But we're going to be cutting the whole end of this thing out anyway, so I'm not too worried about that. Again, it's the bottom and then kind of get a good seam going up it. So that's the plan. See where we go next with this. Stay tuned. All right, so we're all clamped up here. Kind of had to cheat it again because the widths aren't exactly the same dimensionally, but I think that's good enough for us to get it tacked up. And so we're going to go for a tack up and kind of see how it's progressing. All right, I tacked it, started there. I did one up there, then I did one down there, then I laid a little weld in there. Now I'm going to flip it, and then hopefully we can lay some nice welds down. I'm a little hot. I'm at like 48 amps, and I think that's a little hot for this. I've been letting off the pedal. Part of it's me. I'm trying to get used to it and directing the torch the right way and stuff, but it's what we got. All right, I'm not a teacher of TIG welding by any means, but once I got a little bit of that filled in, I've been able to kind of walk the puddle. I put a little material on one side and the other, and now I'm just walking the puddle back and forth and filling in all these gaps where I burned it out. I did turn the welder down a little. I might turn it back up a little bit, but now I'm able to walk the puddle. We'll see how this turns out when I come back through now. As you can see, we got it welded together here. I grinded down the high spots, and so I had a big high spot in the middle there. Got a couple of OK beads going, and then burned some holes in it, but it won't matter. You'll see once I get the 4-inch to go there. We're gonna be cutting a bunch of that out right there, but that's just kind of an update of where we're at. We'll see once I'll line it up with the 4-inch, and then we'll see where we gotta cut and stuff, and I'll walk you through that. All right, here's the plan. So I'm going to take this coupler that's bigger than the 4-inch cone. I'm going to cut it down the middle where it downsizes, and that's where I'm going to weld it into the cone. And then I'll have a nice big piece I can hammer out and work that out. We're going to have a nice little merge that way. So stay tuned. Also, something I forgot to mention is clean all this stuff with acetone, especially inside of these mandrel bends. I don't know what kind of weird grease stuff they use or whatever, but I don't think you'd want to find out either when you start welding it. So clean everything with acetone before you weld it. Okay, you can see where I cut this coupler in half. And what's nice about the coupler is, see, I'll be able to weld this onto here, and then that's what we're going to stretch onto there like that. I'm gonna smash that once it's welded. And so with the coupler, see, it's big on one side, smaller on the other, so it'll be good to weld. So that's the plan. Also, when you're cutting stuff, get one of these tools. I'll put a link up for it. You can take all the edge off on these. Works out nice. I already did this one. I'll do that one next. But just a little tip. Those things work good. They're a little tough on stainless like this, but they still work. All right. So I checked the gauge on these things. These were about 16 gauge. This was somewhere between 17 and 18. I think this one's probably between 16 and 17. So I'm going to set the welder at 55 amps. All right, 55 amps, baby. Go. All right, we got four spot welds. 1, 2, 3, and right there. There's your fourth one. So pretty good. Now I'll just screw it all up with the rest of my welds, but at least I spotted it pretty well. Stand by. Great. YesWelder 205P. Welding some exhausts with my Night's Welding torch. Loving this welder. Just start welding and it's working awesome. Cleaning up some of the welds that are already there. And we're done. Pretty good about that side. A little hot, but 205P is working. All right, now we're going to weld a nice 3-inch piece on there. I got the hose clamp trick going, lined it all up, and then that baby's going to weld onto there. But I got to cut it first. I'm going to do the disc grinder. All right, we're going to do it one more time. So we're going 4. That's a downsizer to 3. And then that way we can either weld 45 or whatever we need to that, or a V-clamp, hopefully a V-clamp. So this is the plan here, and you'll see I'm going to smash that in for the collector. But that's what we got. We're going to tack it up just the same way we did the other one. Feels like it's on there pretty good. All right, got it all tacked up just like I did the last one. Got tack. Tack kind of burned through there, but it's okay. It's still tacked, which is weird because that's 16 gauge. And a tack. So I'm going to weld it the same way I did the last one. All right, so we got our collector part done. Not too bad for a guy that's only been welding for a few months. I should have purged it. I know. I got the sugaring inside, so you don't need to tell me in the comments. I already know what I did, but I didn't have much gas, so this is what I did. So what we're going to do is we're going to smash this baby right there, and it's going to go like that. And that's what we're going to... That's going to be our merge pipe. So it's coming, plan's coming together. So I came back in with the grinder, cleaned up where the welds had penetrated in there. I'll show you. This thing's been working pretty good for me, except this little guy came loose. So if you have one of these, I recommend maybe you go through and tighten it, because it popped right off and scared the shit out of me. Pardon my French. So you can see kind of where we're at. Just wanted to get all the high spots out, so nothing's going to get in the way of the flow. But I'm feeling pretty good about this. Next, what I'm going to do is put a couple of lines on either side of the big side, one side and the other, and then we're going to start hitting it with a hammer and get it, actually what I'm going to do is rubber mallet on a piece of wood and get it to flatten out and give us kind of the oval shape that we're looking for, so we can work the merge there. All right, couple of hits with the rubber mallet and the 2x4, and this is how we're looking. Only bad side is kind of give us a little tweak to this guy, so when I'm all done I'm going to have to bring it back, but we're going to worry about the collector first. Let's see where we're at here. Remember, we were over 4 inches. We're down almost to 3.5, about 3 3/4 right now, and we're up about almost 4.5 there. So making some progress. Decided to hit it at the seam, so the seam just flattens instead of bending more, because it didn't seem like a good idea. But that's where we're at. See where that puts us. About 4.5, about a little under 3 3/4. So we're getting there. Just squeeze a little more out of it, but that's gonna work good. All right, where'd we end up here? about 3-inch, which we're looking for, and we're way up there now, over 4 3/4 on the outside. Just a hair over 3-inch on the inside. Let's see how that's gonna, you can see what it did to that guy. We're gonna have to, once it's, so we're a little over, we're like 3 1/4, and we're way down at like around 2 3/4. So once we get the collector done and get it mounted, we're gonna have to reshape this guy after it's all welded, but I'm not too worried about that. Let's double check this guy fast. He's under 3-inch, so we may want to pound on him a little bit more here, but it seems like it's fitting up fairly good. Give you a look here, see what we're seeing. Let's see, got some gaps we're gonna end up filling and stuff, but I think that's gonna be pretty cool. Once we cut it off and weld it, I think that will flow more than any OBS TBI Chevy should. So I think we'll finesse it just a hair more, come in, trace it, cut it, start setting it up, and start welding. Here's a little update on where we're at on our collector Y-pipe. You saw where I pounded this out, and I'm probably going to put a jack in the middle of it, spread it a little bit more, and try and collapse the corners down a little bit. But that's about where we're going to be when we cut it and weld it. What we're going to end up doing once I'm happy with the fit is I'm going to put a line around it, and then I'll cut to the inside of the line, and then that'll give us, you kind of see where the gaps are. So I'm going to come through and try and stretch it a little bit more, and probably try and close in the gaps a little bit, maybe grind down that top weld a little bit more and the bottom weld a little bit more, so I can see if I can close in some of the gaps a little bit more. But that's what we're going to be looking at when I cut it out. I think that's going to flow really nice. You hadn't seen it, but this is the old collector here, and it's a big difference. These are known to be very constrictive. I'll show it a little bit more in the video, but you can kind of see where this one kind of comes in straight and this one dumps straight into it. So, and these are 2 1/4 to 2 1/2, where we're at 3-inch here to 4-inch, and then we're going to tail back down to 3-inch, because this engine's not going to produce 300 horsepower. So this is going to be plenty of flow. I think if we ended up putting a forward tech in it, what I would do is then just trim it back to about here and just go 4-inch all the way out. So I'll have that option when I'm done. If I want to, I can just take a 4-inch, pound it out, cut that off, and then weld the 4-inch onto there and just stick with the 4-inch all the way back. But I think for what this motor is, with this TBI motor, this is going to flow tremendously. I got it all mated up, got it clamped down, trying to figure out where I want to cut it. I'm really thinking that if I cut along the line, it might mate up perfect with this, because right now we got a step going where it's going in. Initially I was going to cut this down here and have a little bit of overlap, but I'd like to get up into this curve as far as possible. So I'm starting to think if I cut right on the paint line, I think it's going to close this in and get rid of that gap and get it pretty close to even all the way around. Then I can just lay it, which is going to be a harder weld because this is thinner than this, but it might flow better and give me less of a turn, or less, yeah, get rid of some of the turn and kind of made it up almost perfect right there. So I think that's what I'm going to try and do. Not super conventional, but I'm trying to get it where it's going to flow nice. And that's what I'm thinking. Hopefully I don't regret it, but I think I'm going to cut along the line. I'm going to think about it a little bit, but I think that's the plan. All right, we capped it. So I cut that off. You can see where the welds penetrated through here, but not really down the center because of kind of the way, see, where the V was and that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lay a weld down all that. Just get that nice and well joined up before we going forward. But you can see how well that's going to flow. Going 3-inch into a basically 4, and then step back down to a 3. All right, we got the seam all welded there. This thing checked out a little thinner than 18 gauge. I ended up turning the welder up to about 55, 56, 57, somewhere in there, because we had the weld on the other side here, so I know I had thickness. So it started laying down a lot better after that. Also, I started out welding it straight up and down, but you can see the clamp I used in there. Once I laid it down, I was able to go halfway and just lay a bead all the way down, which worked much better. So these clamps for doing exhaust stuff, I think you saw it in one of my other videos when I was making this guy. It works out really good because you can rotate the pipe. It holds it down nice and flat to the table and stuff, and you're not going to mess anything up. And they're real simple. There's a little woodworking thing. I get these at Harbor Freight. I'll put a link in the description for you. But pretty happy. Probably going to knock down some of these welds up here a little bit, knock it down, clean it up a little bit, and then we're off to welding the collector on. All right, got it all cleaned up, nice and smoothed out everything. Should flow nice. Next, we'll jig up the how we're going to put it all together. All right, I pounded on this guy a little bit more, got him down to about 3 inches across, almost 5 inches this way. I picked up, I don't know if you can see the lip right there and there. I'm going to trim it down just a little bit on that line, and then I'll get a little bit wider out here on the hole, and it should fit a little bit better. And then I think we're ready to go. All right, here's where we're at. Jumped ahead a little bit, but so my last cut in my last video where I went around cut that a little bit more off of that, probably should have skipped that. Created a few gaps. You can see I burned through like there. I'm going to clean all this up a little bit, but it's all welded and feeling pretty good. I mean, I'm going to have to straighten this. I'll show you when I go to do that, but what I'm going to do first, see if we can get this to focus in there. I'm going to try and get in there with a grinder, clean up some of the crusties in there, and then I don't know if you can see kind of the edge in there. I'm going to go in and kind of touch up the corners so it flows better on both sides. You can see it on that one. Let's see if I can get the thing to focus in there. Trying to really get those parts kind of cleaned up with a grinder. I ordered these off of Amazon. They got really good reviews. We'll see how they work out. I gotta check the ad again though, because I could swear the ad said 6-inch, which is what I thought. I don't know, maybe it was my eyes. These are more like 4-inch, but the set was really reasonable. Got really good reviews on Amazon. New die grinder, because the fitting end broke off of my central pneumatic one that they don't make anymore, so I bought a $29 one at Harbor Freight. I was going to buy the Vivor electric, but the problem was I don't think it'll go down in the tubes. So the air one is going to be it. I got the you'll see I got the extended air. We're going to go for the grinder bits, clean everything up on the inside, clean everything up on the outside, and then we're going to work on making this guy round again so we can put a fitting on it. And then we got to figure out if I can get the oxygen sensor to hook up on the headers. If I can't, I'm going to weld a bung on the collector. Then we're going to start working on linking the exhaust together, probably weld some cones onto the catalytic converter. So we got that set up because the catalytic converter is going to hook right into the end of this thing. So that's where we're going with all this. I'll show you how the grinder looks with the end on it and how we can get down to those welds and touch everything up. We'll touch up the outside, and then like I said, we'll fix that bottom and weld that in. That's where we're at. All right, there's our new McGraw grinder with the die grinder with the new grinder bit on there. So that'll hopefully help us get in like that and hit our areas. It seems like it'll work good for what we need to do. $29 for the grinder. Hopefully it holds better than the central pneumatic one that I lost the air fitting out of. Broke off inside there. So, well, I got the air fitting, was fine, but the grinder body took a crap. So hopefully I get a little bit more out of this one. $29. We'll see what happens. This is the grinder bit we ended with. I started with that one. Didn't like the profile for what I was doing, so I switched over to that guy. I'm going to post some pictures of the inside. I think these grinder bits worked good. They really dug into the stainless nice. I was really happy with how they worked for something I got off of Amazon. They actually worked way better than my old Mac ones that I have. They're like 30 years old. I burned through right there, so I think you can see the light coming in here. I'll show you. It's going to be right. Yeah, you can see it change in color right there in the corner, up in the upper corner. So we're going to be, yeah, right there. So I'm going to have to re-weld that quick. But overall, pretty happy. I think you can see the flow on each side is going to be tremendous, especially when, you know, this is 3 into a 4, a little over a 4 that's almost 5. I think it's 5 this way, and then about 3 this way, and then it necks down to 3 again. For a TVI motor, this is going to be fine. If we ever switched over to a Vortec motor, what I would do is just cut it right there and then smash a 4-inch and then let it, you know, round back out, and just run 4-inch all the way back. But for the TBI motor, this is a ton of exhaust. I don't think we're going to have any restriction here off of this, and I think it's going to really scavenge well. So that's my theory. So I'm going to touch up that one weld right, let's see, right there. So we're going to re-weld that guy, and then we'll see where we're at, and then we're going to work on putting the V-band in the bottom. So that's where we're at. All right, here's where we're at. So I touched up where I had burned through with the grinder right there. Gave this a little clean up there. Clean this guy where it was protruding up a little bit right there. A little bit right there. Pretty happy with where we ended up. Let's see if you can see it. Right there. Yeah. Pretty good. There. Feel like that guy's gonna float pretty good. And then I took some pictures I'll put up too of the before and after. So you can see, went through, grinded it out. Really happy with these bits I got off of Amazon. Put a link up. This video I'm not going to monetize. I'm just going to put a link up of everything in the component video, and I'll link to that component video. But these Justice carbide bits, they eat through a lot better than the other one. I've got some old Mac ones I've had for about 30 years that these things work way better. I think the description says I think they're overall about 5 inches. Might be a hair under that. I bought after my central pneumatic grinder blew out back here. I bought this McGraw for 29 bucks. Really powerful, really torques. Ended up with this one. Started with this bit, didn't like what it was doing in there, so went with that one, and then finished with this guy. So next up, we're gonna hit the end and did a little bit of shaping with this guy. I picked this guy up off of Amazon. I kind of duplicated some of the ones that these grinders that I've seen they use on Bitchin' Rides and Can Dig It design. Like to shorten this guy up a little bit. But this thing works pretty good for cutting and a little bit of shaping. And then put the sanding disc on the muff buffer. Kind of went over and cleaned up some of the outside with that. Love this thing. This was a Costco cheapo special I bought when I was in college. Part of a set. Thing just keeps going. Here's my old Mac one. Mac Rasp from like 30 years ago. Again, these new Amazon ones are working better. I'll explain that. But so next up, what our plan is here, and take the wobble out of that with the rubber hammer and a 2x4. See if we can get it round, and then we're going to weld the Evil Energy V-band onto there, and then we're going to start working on the exhaust, I think. So that's our plan. All right, next stage of the plan. So we're going to use these Evil Energy V-bands. I got it off of Amazon. They're in the link. Let's see if you can see. I've just learned how to focus these babies now. See how you tap it and it gets a focus. So here's my plan. The ones that are the male are going to go in front, and the ones that are the female are going to go in back. So we're going to go male front, female back, and that way it's going to be that way for the cat and stuff. So if I have to change the cat or whatever, I can buy one set like this and change it out. So that's my plan, because I'll be female in front, male in back on the cat. We're going to go male onto this guy. There's our male. And you can see right chow that got a little ways to go here to get this guy rounded out. So we'll film a little bit of the old hammer, but you can see, I think, the gaposis we got. So let's see if we can fix this. We'll get a little hammering going. That right there. If anybody, ooh, that's not good. Got a little flattening going. So I'm gonna have to work that guy out a little bit. Luckily, I think I have a flange tool that I can come in and fix it with. So it got a little soft, so we're gonna have to fix that up. But we can do it. It's metal. Metal works its way around. So that's what we'll work on right now. So obviously we got to hit it on something a little softer than a 2x4. All right, we employed the old mini jack spreader, and I think I got it back into shape. So now I got to be more careful when I pound on it. But that's the next iteration here. There we go. Well, it's working. The stainless is fighting us a little bit, but I think we're pretty close on it. Just getting that thing back around so we can get the clamp on there and then weld it. So the thing's definitely working. I'm sure it would work a lot better on non-stainless. I think the stainless is a little strong for it, and what we're trying to do of getting it to go back around, it keeps having kind of a memory. So we're just going to leave it for a while, and I think we'll be pretty well set. All right, our exhaust flaring tool did the trick. So we're going to come in, do a little tacky job around that, get our V-band clamp from Evil Energy on there, and we're going to be running it, baby. All right, I started welding with it just clamped down to the table without this clamp. I started to get a little bit of warpage in the flanges, so I decided to clamp it down. I switched out the nut for a non-nylock nut so I could just tighten it up really quick. So I think this will work better as it moves the heat through it. It'll kind of keep it clamped. So I laid that bead down there. You can see I got a couple voids in there I'm going to have to fill back in. I ran the amperage up on the welder up to 62. I started out at 59. I could tell it was a little cold. So let's see what happens. Probably going to go for a bead right here, come around to here or so, and we'll see how we're looking. Got our Evil Energy right on the clamp. That's kind of cool. But I'll check back in after we weld it. All right, you can see what we started with over here and what we ended up with our collector and everything. We did the 2 into 1. I think I talked about it a little bit, but the U is not exactly uniform in the middle of this thing. I don't know if you can, yeah, this one you can really see how it's kind of out around. So one of these sides, so you can see the ripples here, I think, is a little out around as opposed to the other side. So that kind of battled us a little bit on this deal, but we got it done. And you see what we started out with, what we ended up with. I think we're going to end up probably cutting these guys back down, you know, like that probably, because what we're replacing is this guy, which we've gone through before. That's the Y collector for the Chevy. So we're replacing this guy right there. You can see in. Let's see. Not really. Okay. So that's what we're replacing it with. We got the Evil Energy V-band all welded on. Gonna probably have to clean up a little bit of the inside of it. See where we kind of got through a little bit in there. So I'm gonna have to take the grinder, kind of clean it up a little bit. I'm gonna link to my other video of all the parts that I started with, so that way I don't have to monetize this video. Everything will be in the other video, the grinders, everything, all the parts. So far I really like the Evil Energy clamp. Like I said, I went to a regular thread and not a nylock or a kind of a crushed nylock thing that it comes with. So then it's easier to take on and off while you're welding it and everything. And I highly recommend welding it with the clamp on. I think it makes a lot more sense. Looks like I may be having a little problem here getting it off after heat cycling it and everything, but we'll deal with that. So that's what we got. All right, so I had to go around it with a screwdriver and just kind of loosen it up. It had a little tightness to it. Now we're off there. Let's see what happens with this. How bad this guy's gonna be. Hopefully it didn't get some voltage through it or whatever. Could have arced a little bit when I was welding it. Hopefully not. All right, we got it apart. I guess it's just got a tight fit right now after the welding and everything, but got it apart. Goes back together. Looks like we got it. So we're off to the races. We got our V-band on there. Next, we're gonna cut the cat. So we're gonna give it a cut right there and a cut right there, and I think it's 2.5. So we've got some 2.5 inch to 3 inch cones we're going to weld on each end of the cat with the V-bands, and that's going to be our next step. But right now we got our Y connector done, and not the prettiest, but it'll work. It's all stainless. We know the welds are strong because I pounded on all that and none of it cracked or anything, so I'm pretty happy about where we're at. I'm gonna have to grind down these guys a little bit in here, but we can see our flow is going to be really nice coming out of that, especially next to what our stock was there. So like and subscribe. That's what we started with, and you'll be able to go through the whole video and see how we changed it. Like I said, we're probably going to cut these guys off shorter once we start getting into the car and welding everything together, but that's where we're at. All right, you can see it kind of cleaned that up pretty good. Did it with the grinder there and the bit with those grinder bits. Cleaned it up really nice. See a bunch of protrusion.